My name is Mike and I'm in the process of reworking a 1973 Ford Pinto. Now this thing's in pretty rough shape, but it's slowly improving. I've already reworked the cowl on it. Today I'm going to be reworking the passenger side floorboard here. There's not a lot left of it, it's just really a big old rusty hole. So I'll be cutting all that rust out and fabricating a piece of steel to go in there and getting it welded back into place. Here's a piece of steel I fabricated. What I did is I made a cardboard template and then used it to make this. When I lay it into place, I'm going to mark all around the perimeter of it with a Sharpie. And then I'm going to go back in and cut out all the rust and leave only about where there'll be like a 3/4 inch overlap under this piece of steel. Okay, you can kind of see my mark there where I've marked for my steel. There's a body channel right here. It's a structural part of the body that this floor pan that I put in here needs to be welded back to. So what I've got to do is I've got to clean all this up off of that channel right there, and I'm going to cut out all this rust, leaving about a 3/4 inch lap to where my new piece of metal will overlap this part by about 3/4 of an inch, and then I'm going to weld it to that channel right there. The channel that I was talking about on the inside that's underneath the floor pan is part of this framework on the outside. So I got to thinking that there's so much rust on this thing, this may have moved some since I've been working on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this brace back on that ties to the cowl and ties to this side panel here on the side of the engine bay, and that'll help me make sure that everything's aligned correctly before I go in there and weld the new floor pan in. So I'm going to get this welded on here now and the one on the other side, and then I'll go back to work on the inside floor pan. All right, I have those back on, welded in place and primed. My welding's not all that great, but they're on there. I don't think they're going anywhere. I got that one on and the one on the other side. So everything lined right back up from where I took them off. All the little spot welds I drilled out, I lined everything back up. So in my mind, all of this should be back where it's supposed to be. I can go inside and remove the rusted floor pan and replace it with my new one. There's the end of a sort of like a cross member here. I'll get that cleaned up. And then here's the channel I'm talking about. I gotta get all this stuff cleaned up off of it, back down to some good metal so I can weld my new pan right to that. Well, it took a little work, but I got it cleaned up. Now I'll have to still go back and put a piece up here down to the one I'm putting on, but I have all the contact areas cleaned up, sanded and ground down to the bare metal. I'm going to use some weld through primer and prime all that. This is my new pan that I fabricated that'll go in. I have holes that I'm going to weld through back to that channel. At least that's the plan. I'll still have to do some forming and shaping on this as I get it in there to make it fit exactly right. But anyway, it's going to weld all around the perimeter and through those holes. I'm going to go ahead and prime the back of it with some weld through primer. So I'll prime the back of this with weld through primer, and I'll prime all that with weld through primer. Okay, I got everything all primed up now. There's that. It turned out pretty good. Here's the bottom of my new floor pan. I'm going to flip this thing over, get it in place, and spot weld it. I'll show you what it looks like when I get done. Okay, what I'm doing here is cutting the upper piece of this passenger side floorboard. Basically, I took a thin piece of cardboard. In this case, it's a pizza box, and I cut it to fit exactly So when I put it in, I weld along this seam here and around this other plate here. I'll go back and you can see some holes there. I'm gonna go back and cut some pieces that will roll up that contoured area and fill in all those holes and stuff. It's gotten pretty cold here and I've not gotten to work on as much as I should. I've actually got me a heater in here trying to stay warm because it's so cold. Well, I have the rust cut out and everything cleaned up as good as I can get it. I'm gonna put some weld through primer on there. And there's my metal laying on there. I've got some marks, as you can see, from there to there. I'm gonna draw a line, I'm gonna drill some holes there. That's above the structural frame under here. So then I can spot weld through those holes to that framework. I'll come back in on the next run and fill in this curve section right here. Okay, there's my primed part ready to go. I've got the holes drilled in it. I'll weld through those to the frame member. I've got that all cleaned up and ready to go. It's about 36 degrees this morning, so I'm gonna try to stay warm as I can. Well, there's my upper floor pan patch. I see some pinholes around the edges here and there. I'm fixing to put some seam sealer on there, and then I'll go ahead and get this thing primed. It turned out pretty well considering what I had to work with, and I'm not the best welder or patch maker, but I'm getting better and better. Let me get some seam sealer on there and get this thing primed, and I'll show you what it looks like. There's the completed passenger side front floor pan. It came out pretty decent. It's a whole lot better than it was. I still have to do some work along the edge of the wheel well, but I'm going to do all that from the outside. You know, patching places like that, all that's going to be done from the outside. Well, that's going to do it for this video. I think what I'm going to do next on this project is take some of the stuff, smaller stuff, into my garage, like the dash. Go ahead and get those things reworked since the temperature's so cold outside. But I really appreciate that you took the time to watch this video. And again, I hope that you'll consider subscribing and follow along as I do some work on this Pinto, along with many other projects. Thanks again for being here, and may God bless you. That's not a forward key, it's backwards to a forward key.
You said it was a forward key.
It looks like a forward key, but it's backwards. It's reversed. Now for the hard part is to get this 55-inch Samsung Smart TV from here to up there by myself. I think I can do it.